Hey there! Today we're going to be covering how I base my DarkAngels. You can find a list of the tools needed for this tutorial at the top left of the screen now, or in the pinned comment down below. There is also more examples of my DarkAngel basing that can be found on my Instagram, also linked below. If you want to learn more about basing, subscribe so you don't miss the full video. First we'll start by mixing part A and part B of Apoxie Sculpt thoroughly, and then taking a small ball of it and pushing it into our base. This will create a landform but also act as our adhesion for the resin pieces. Remember to check the fit of your model regularly. It really sucks if you make a beautiful base and then your model no longer fits on it. You either have to make a new one or alter the current one. I've added a large tree trunk to the base, and I'm using my tool to push down the edges to keep it nice and secure. If you want to add more components or less to your basing than I am doing in this video, that is totally fine. I personally like very busy basing with lots of points of interest. Then I'll add some more materials and smooth it down with a tiny bit of water. We need some extra depth so that I can push more foliage in. We start by adding the bigger pieces of vegetation and then using epic basing tuner bits to blend it out more naturally. I always have some thorns on every one of my bases as it adds a little bit of punch colour later when they're painted. Don't panic about getting any of this perfect. Randomness looks more natural. Between bases, we're aiming for them to be cousins, not twins. My goal is to basically put every one of my models on a little diorama of its own. Eventually, I'd love to decorate my shelves so that they match my DarkAngels basing, so the entire thing just looks like a display. Maybe I'll share that as a future project. Sometimes it can be a little bit difficult to stick into the Apoxie Sculpt, but that's fine. We can rejig this as we go. And also just push it a little bit deeper, or add a little bit more material underneath if necessary. This step is about the placement and the initial bonding, but our next step will be about sealing it in and blending it all together. One final check before we move on. Next we're going to put on the texture paste. The Apoxie Sculpt is not yet cured, but this is fine, don't worry. We're going to apply it as a super thick layer to cover the flat areas and any gaps we might have, as well as blending it from the base to the environment. We'll then water it down a little bit more as we get closer to details, and then water it down further still to blend the rocks and the tree into the paste around it. We don't want to lose any detail, but we can always go back in with a brush loaded with water and just remove it from the areas as required. Before priming, you can leave them overnight to entirely cure the Apoxie Sculpt underneath, but as long as you're not rough when handling the bases, you can carry on as soon as the texture paste dries. This will act as a grout to the pieces and keep it all together. It'll take about 15 to 30 minutes to dry, but I advise against using a hairdryer to speed the process up. Heat often complicates things and can also alter the effect of the paste. It is absolutely hammering it down outside right now, so I will be using my airbrush to prime the bases so that I don't ruin them. There is, however, absolutely no difference between using an airbrush or a rattle can to prime during this step. I would advise against brush priming though, unless you have left it to cure overnight. And now it's looking all nice and cohesive. Now we're onto the painting. First we'll be dry brushing the rocks and the trees using Cold Corpse Blue. For the tree we're aiming for the bark but not the inner broken parts of the trunk. We're trying to give it a nice charred look. And then follow that up with Gravestone Blue on the trunk. We're then going to apply Wizard Grey to the rocks, followed by Carcharodon Grey. For the thorns, we're painting Fluorescent Purple at the base of them. This will take 2 or 3 coats to build up because it is very thin. If you would like to make these as vibrant as possible, start out by base coating it white first. Either way, this will take 2 to 3 coats to build up first. We'll then use Fluorescent Pink on the top half and try to overlap this a little on the purple. It will help blend it in. If you're already competent with wet blending, that is what I advise using. Using some thinned down scorched earth, we're going to remove most of it from our brush and then kind of just stab it into the flat earthy areas of the base between the various elements. I do not advise using your good brushes for this. Next we move on to the plants. We're going to start with Royal Cloak on the plants at the front, but we're only painting the top 75% of each leaf and leaving the internal parts dark. Marine blue is used for the long grass at the back, again top 75% only. Then Hydra green for the smaller plants just next to it, it's also 75% coverage. And lastly, Berserker red for our final patch. You guessed it, 75% coverage only. We're then going to start edge highlighting the plants with much brighter colours to give them a more alien look. This is a death world after all. We'll be using Amulet purple for the royal cloak highlights and then Gigawatt blue for the highlights on the marine blue. We will not be highlighting the thorns next to it though. We'll be using Flaming Forge orange for the plants that we painted Berserker red, and finally Ghoul green for the highlights on the Hydra green foliage. Then all that's left to do is secure the model to the base. I will be using some industrial grade superglue from Everbuild. And we're all done. A huge thanks to my patrons for always supporting me. It means a lot to me that you enjoy my content. The lowest tier is just £3 and joining unlocks the members area of the Discord and access to the Supporter Hobby Hangouts on Tuesdays. Higher tiers allow you to watch videos a day earlier and get a shout out at the end of my videos, and a way to become a permanent part of my DarkAngels collection, with the highest tier being a fully customised model with a display plaque of your name on the base that will be built and painted in a video. The full basing video will be coming out soon, so subscribe to make sure that you don't miss it. Drop a like, comment what you'd like to see next, or to let me know your thoughts, and consider joining the Discord. Links for everything can be found in the description down below as well as the pinned comment of this video. Until next time, remember that the magic that you're looking for is in the work that you're avoiding.